So Tennessee coming in this season, we all know Josh Heupel, new head coach. There's a lot of things that we already know about Tennessee. A lot of things that I've already talked about on this show that we could go and ramble on forever. And does any of it really matter now in this current time and situation? Because we already know what we think of each player. We already know what we think of Josh Heupel and the staff coming into Tennessee. We already think we know a lot of stuff going into Tennessee's season. But it really all comes down to what happens in the actual season. And that's what makes the offseason fun. That's why I love talking in the offseason, even though I love the regular season so much more and I love when we're actually playing. The offseason is kind of when you get to make up your own storylines for this season. You kind of get to make up your feeling for how you feel about each team. So Tennessee, I think we all have our own individual opinions on how we feel about this team going into this season. The QB situation is something that I've talked about a ton on this channel. What I was pitching, what I really wanted to see from Tennessee, the guys that I liked, I was huge on Hendon Hooker and I was huge on Harrison Bailey. Obviously, the two other guys in this QB race, you're going to have Joe Milton and then you were going to have Brian Maurer. So Brian Maurer has since transferred and we just got news today that it looks like there is a front runner in Tennessee to be the starting quarterback this season. And his name is Joe Milton, obviously Michigan transfer. Joe Milton was a guy who was very highly sought after at Michigan. I know I got a couple Michigan fans back home. My partner on this channel, Bernie's a big Michigan fan. He loved Joe Milton up until he actually started playing for Michigan. And it just didn't work out at Michigan, but we all know that the talent and everything is there for Joe Milton to be successful. Again, this isn't for me to come out and really break down all of Joe Milton's skills, break down his stats from last year, because does any of that really matter if we're going to put him in a new system under Josh Heupel in Tennessee, if we're going to give him a new team, if we're going to give him new colors to wear on the field? Does any of what happened last year, I just spilt sunflower seeds all over my computer, does any of what happened last year, does any of the stats, the coaching staff that he had last year mean anything for this season? Ultimately, no. Does any skill mean anything? Obviously, you need skill, but does breaking down, comparing these guys mean anything right now as fans just talking about it? No. I think what Tennessee is really trying to go for here and what coming out is Joe Milton being the front runner for this Tennessee starting QB job is Joe Milton could easily be the most talented guy there. He could easily have the most potential. He could easily have all these different things to be the best guy at Tennessee. But I also believe that Hendon Hooker and Harrison Bailey are also up there for having great potential to be a great quarterback at Tennessee. Does Joe Milton coming out as the front runner mean he is the best QB in this room? Not necessarily. I'm not saying that he's not. I'm saying not necessarily that Joe Milton is the best quarterback in this room just because he is currently leading the reports that he is leading this QB race. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's the best guy in the room. I think he's definitely got talent. I think he could easily be the best guy in this room. But I think Tennessee and Josh Heupel really are just going for, in these first 3 games, the guy that gives you the best chance to win. Look, there could be a difference between the guy that gives you the best chance to win and the guy that has the most potential and has the most firepower and the guy who is going to be the future of your program. But that doesn't always mean that that guy who has the potential and can get your program in a good spot in the next coming years or the next coming games doesn't mean that he is ready to go in and play currently. See, I think Tennessee's first 3 games is really going to depict their whole season, because if this is a team that wants to make a bowl game, which I'm pretty sure all Tennessee fans could agree with me that they want to make a bowl game, you got to win these first 3 games. I mean, look at their schedule. They start off the season with Bowling Green, Pitt, and Tennessee Tech all at home, and then after that is when you start getting into the meat of your schedule. After that Tennessee Tech game, you go to Florida, and that basically starts the tough stretch that Texas A&M has playing in an SEC schedule, which they always have to. So these 3 games, if you want to get to 6 wins, these 3 games are going to be absolutely pivotal, which means you need the guy who is going to give you the best chance to win. And if Tennessee feels that Joe Milton is that guy right now, put him in, because Bowling Green, I think, should be a win for Tennessee. They play that game Thursday, September the 2nd. That is going to be our first real SEC game that we get to watch. They're going to be our first team that we get to see play. I don't know why I said first real SEC game. They're going to be the first SEC team that we get to see play all season. I'm excited to watch that. I just want to see how this Tennessee team really plays as a whole, because so many questions really with every team, but you really look at the 4 teams who got new head coaches. Tennessee is one of them, and they're going to be a very intriguing team. So Bowling Green, definitely that September 2nd game should be a win. Pitt is going to be It's really hard for me to call this a turning point in the season because it is the second game, and a swing game, to call it that is absolutely insane. But I think this game means a lot as a tone setter for the rest of the season, because if this Tennessee team wants to be competitive 2 weeks later at Florida, if this Tennessee team wants to be competitive against your Georgias, against your Alabamas, against your even Missouri and Kentucky this year, Tennessee's got to be able to beat one of those if they want to be able to make it to a bowl game. So I think Pitt is a huge tone setter game. Pitt is not an easy out at all. They do come to Neyland Stadium, which is a good thing, but I still think Tennessee has a good chance of winning this game. And then you got Tennessee Tech, which also I think should be a win. Starting at the season 3-0 or winning 3 of your first 4 games, if you think that you could beat Florida, I think is absolutely pivotal. So right now, that's what I'm getting from this Joe Milton news, is that he is the guy right now, not necessarily the best guy in that room, not necessarily the guy with the most potential and everything like that, but I think Joe Milton is the guy right now who is going to put Tennessee in the best position to win. Joe Milton could easily start the rest of the season. Joe Milton could easily get this team to a bowl game, but that's just what I wanted to come and talk about, is that just because he's named the starting quarterback for week 1, 2, 3 doesn't mean that Hendon Hooker and Harrison Bailey are out for the rest of the season. I still think all 3 guys in that room have insane amount of talent, and I want to see all of them play at some point, because we've been talking about them so much that I got to see them actually play in the regular season. But we know there's only one quarterback on each team who can play at a time, so looks like Joe Milton is going to get his shot, his rebound at becoming a star in college football, kicking off with Tennessee. And Tennessee's going to be a good team this year. I know that a lot of people feel otherwise about that. It's just because Tennessee's expectation is more, but I think Tennessee, for what people give them credit for, Tennessee's going to be a good team this year. They got weapons around them. I'm not saying that this is a 8-win team or anything like that, but this is a team that could definitely be threatening into bowl territory. So Joe Milton starting at Tennessee. Let's see how he does, or front runner for starting against Bowling Green. Let's see how the rest of the QB battle goes. And Thursday, September 2nd, we will see one of these 3 guys suit up in the orange and white in Tennessee and take snaps for them. Right now, it's looking like Joe Milton is the lead for that.